Hi everyone. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I really wish it was in person, but I'm still really happy to be here to talk about bears. There are 8 species of bears found from the Arctic to Peru to Borneo and Europe, and they need a variety of habitats to survive. Protecting habitats for bears benefits thousands of other species, including ourselves. If the land is healthy enough to support a fit bear population, then it is also healthy enough to support humans. Because bears are found in so many different places, by protecting bears in their habitat, we're indirectly protecting other wildlife and entire ecosystems. In fact, if we can protect all of the 8 bear species, we would actually protect 1/3 of our planet, covering 4 continents, as you can see here in the map. One of the most elusive and poorly known bears in the world lives in South America. Can you guess what that is? The spectacle bear. Almost nothing is known about their ecology, and they exist in small, scattered populations from Venezuela to Bolivia. Unfortunately, their populations are declining rapidly. We suspect there may be as little as 5,000 left in the wild, scattered throughout small islands of habitat in South America. While spectacle bears are known to be adaptable and occupy a variety of habitats and altitudes throughout their range, the historic range for spectacle bears has declined dramatically in recent years due to the accelerated pace of expansion of human-dominated landscapes from commercial and subsistence agriculture, such as this seen in the photo. You can see hills and hills of agriculture. And due to extreme human pressure, such as the community expansion, which brings new roads, large swaths of forest are removed or burned for agriculture, such as this rice plantation in an area that would have been such great summer habitat for bears. And not to mention COVID. What has that done to this bear population? Well, bear bile is a substance secreted by the liver and stored in a bear's gallbladder. And this has particularly become a concern for us because the Chinese government has been promoting the use of bear bile as a cure to COVID. Traditional medicine in Peru is still used by people from rural areas, and given the widespread impact of coronavirus in Peru and the recommendations by the Chinese government to use bear bile, we fear this may trigger an increase in poaching of an already vulnerable population, and we are currently seeing this, as you can see in the photo. Rapid habitat loss and out-of-control wildfires now threaten spectacle bear habitat, leaving many bear populations with very limited food, such as this plant called sapote, which is a critical bear food. It is not only removed for agriculture, but it is burned by out-of-control wildfires started to clear the land for agriculture purposes. Only last year we witnessed thousands of acres of prime bear habitat burned to the ground. And bears like this mom and 2-month-old cub cannot survive and die due to starvation, as females are no longer able to lactate. The spectacle bear occupies a range that covers only 3% of the area of South America. However, it does coincide with the habitat of at least 76% of all South American species, so it is vitally important for the planet to ensure this bear species thrives in the wild. In 2006, we discovered a small and unique bear population in the equatorial dry forest of northern Peru. The first bear we saw in this arid ecosystem, we named Laura. She was a really special bear. And in 2019, we created our new logo in her memory, which is inspired by the strong connection between mother and cub and represents resilience, hope, and continuity of the spectacle bear. We work in a watershed in northern Peru that encompasses 3 distinct ecosystems with a large elevation gradient between 800 and 12,000 feet. However, for the next few years, we are focusing our conservation program in the equatorial dry forest due to the speed at which this ecosystem is being destroyed. It's lots of cactus and spiny rock-faced cliffs. It is very arid and it is relatively open, making it so much easier to spot bears in this ecosystem, which has allowed us to monitor them, observe them, and learn so much about them in the wild. Precipitation, however, is low, and years can go by with very little rain, if any, making this challenging for both people and wildlife, not to mention our field teams, as we have to carry water wherever we go. Laura, the first bear we met here, was an unusual and curious bear. She opened her world to us and showed us how bears in this harsh environment survive. In later years, she also introduced us to her male companions, who taught us so much about spectacle bears in general. Like this male, Chris, who makes a shrilling noise to let you know this is breeding season, and then he is ready to stand his ground and protect his territory. He also showed us that this was a territory that our field teams would not easily navigate. We had to place ropes all around the area and the rock faces to try to keep up with the bears and to continue our observation study. This young bear is climbing down to try to reach some of the snails that you can see tucked underneath a little ledge there. But sometimes these bears just go places that we really don't want to go. They use the cliffs to reach honey and the snails and other things hanging over these cliffs. And then there was her other male bear companion, Marco, the very chilled out bear that continues to cause us trouble by ripping down our cameras all the time. He taught us how important the small spring-fed waterholes were for bears, particularly male bears that use these waterholes to leave their scent so that female bears knew that they had arrived. These waterholes are a small oasis in such an arid ecosystem, and you can see that little tiny green dot in the background. There's only a few fig trees that protect the little tiny waterhole. But it's what keeps the wildlife alive in this ecosystem. And then bears like this, Marco, spend a lot more time than the average bear, just chilling out, cooling himself down, playing with the leaves. This was Marco earlier in the year. January can be some of the hottest, well, one of the hottest times of the year. He definitely looks like he owns the place. But the water is limited and often dries out in the very dry winter months when the temperatures continue to be high. So that's usually June or July or August, and it's still pretty hot, but there can be next to no water left. You can see this bear here trying to sit in this little tiny water hole, but there's not much water there, and you can hear the deep breathing trying to cool himself down. The water trickles down too, and it creates kind of a mud, so this is a way that they can try to cool themselves down. You can see this bear trying to put his entire body all over the mud. And then there's this bear, Jorge. Earlier this year, he confirmed that the dry forest bear population do in fact eat meat. This is a recent video from a few months ago taken on one of our camera traps. However, they do spend most of their time feeding on fruits and trees, actually. But this bear was pretty lucky. It was most likely killed by a cougar puma. And I did say trees, actually. They eat trees like a beaver would eat a tree. This is one of the few foods they have during the winter months, and it can take them up to 2 weeks to eat the entire tree. This is a young cub just feeding on the pasayo tree. The mom has to come and break it open because they're so hard, and then the cub just pulls little bits and pieces out. Kind of wonder how they get much nutrients from that, but they can spend up to 6 months feeding on just that. So like this is an example of the tree. It provided food for over 10 days for a mother and cub. And the great news is the trees are not destroyed and they continue to grow again. Like you can see this pasayo tree with a little tiny tree coming out of the broken trunk. But foods like this overo fruit, which is available in small patches around the dry forest throughout the year, provide the needed calories for these bears as well. And when the bears have finished eating, they pass the seeds through their scats and they help the dry forest to continue to regenerate. So this is really important for this type of ecosystem. However, due to extreme human pressure, such as community expansion, which brings new roads, large swaths of forest are removed or burned. And critical food sources, such as the sapote tree, are destroyed for agriculture and burned in out-of-control wildfires. Last year, thousands of acres of key sapote and overo habitat were destroyed, and so little remained for bears. And bears, particularly females with cubs, are starving from limited access to key food resources. In fact, the cub survival rate in this area is as low as 20%, so they have very little chance at life. And this is a video of a small bear that had recently left a cub, most likely because she had stopped lactating. Female bears in this condition just cannot produce milk. You can see how skinny she is. The back end should be nice and round, and it kind of slants down, and her bones and her ribs are all showing. However, as seen in these photos, that same skinny bear was able to access the pote and overo fruit, and within 4 months, she had doubled in size. It's not just about protecting the habitat. Human disturbances from nearby villages also play a negative role in preventing bears from accessing the food they need in the low elevation habitat where free-ranging cattle ranching is a common practice. But this occurs across all the watershed from 800 feet all the way up to 12,000 feet. With people and cattle often come dogs, which chase and frighten bears away. So what is the solution? Our strategy is a combination of community empowerment, habitat protection, and research. Much of the land is owned by local indigenous communities, and we need to work closely with them to help conserve it. Environmental education also plays a key role in conservation, because if they grow up to love and appreciate the bears, then they will want to protect them. In the last year, we have reached thousands of school children in the Lecce watershed in more than 10 villages that live adjacent to prime bear habitat. We also use our rescued animals to teach children to care for their domestic pets, which helps foster empathy and respect for all animals and deepens their connection to bears. However, working with the local villages, as well as providing an alternative livelihood, is also very important for the protection of bear habitat. Our most important alternative livelihood program is our felty program, which involves the production of small, handcrafted woolen animals using a method called dry needle felting. So it's basically a needle and some wool. Many participants are earning an income for the first time in their lives. And since beginning this program in 2009, our felty team has grown substantially, and each year we train new women from key villages surrounding prime bear habitat to become part of this program. In 2019, we made over 12,000 felted animals that were sold across North America. Felty also provides a direct economic benefit. Our felty artisans are from rural and indigenous communities. They become empowered to earn a fair wage. We sell these products in retail stores throughout Canada and the US and Christmas markets. Unfortunately, this year, most of the Christmas markets are not running due to COVID, and this is a time with the help of so many volunteers that we sell over 75% of our products. So please consider purchasing our products online or contacting us if you know of any stores that may be interested in carrying our felted ornaments. We need to keep these women working. If we can increase the number of products sold each year, we can get more and more communities involved and scale up the program and directly protect more bear habitat. More felties mean more bears protected. And while the women are on hold due to COVID-19, we continue to provide them with a salary, as we are very concerned for the women and their negative effects this pandemic will have on them and their families. So please consider supporting this and other programs at SBC. We are also focusing our efforts on locating and protecting bears in their 250,000 acres area. You can see that here in the blue. We suspect that this is the last remaining dry forest bear population that survives today. Our immediate goal is to locate all low elevation dry forest habitat used by bears and protect it as quickly as possible through land purchase and restoration. Purchasing key parcels of privately owned land critical for bear survival will rapidly protect this habitat. Strategic land purchase has the potential to protect the entire dry forest bear population. The habitat seen here in the dotted yellow line is all privately owned, intact forest where we have found bears. And after 14 years of fieldwork and monitoring these bears, we recently had one of the greatest surprises of our life. While we were all under quarantine during this intense COVID period, our camera traps continued to run and photograph a number of bears where you can see the red dot here on this map. It's an area that we had never imagined could be inhabited by bears. In fact, it is so arid that cattle rarely venture there, and it is surrounded by agriculture landscape. So we never in our wildest dreams thought we would find bears here. And this is the first photograph we have from this bear in the area. And it appears that the bears came to this area to feed on overo fruit as seen here in the scat. This new area has one of the highest concentrations of overo fruit in the region. One of the most promising things about this discovery is that habitat is located between two national parks, and the parks you can see on the left of this map has been completely cut off from any forested landscape. By working with the government and private landowners, we can create one contiguous protected habitat for bears, and our short-term vision can be seen here on the map in green. One huge area for bears that they can move freely through without being impacted by roads, agriculture, and humans. Our team in the past month have already been exploring this area now and leaving camera traps in as many places as possible. And to our surprise, once again, it's not just the bears that like this area. Numerous other species have now been documented to use this area. And like the bears in our other study, they love to move the cameras, lick the cameras, slobber on the cameras, and make them really blurry. So this camera trap is in fact in focus, but it's covered in slobber. This is an ocelot cat, and we have very few videos and photographs on our camera traps of this over the last 14 years, so it's really exciting to see. Thanks to the support of many caring people, we have begun the process of purchasing parcels of key sapote habitat located adjacent to this newly discovered bear population. Our short-term goal now is to link the 3 protected areas through land purchase and restoration. Just imagine how amazing this would be to see a series of protected areas created to allow bears to move freely and to have enough food to keep both themselves and their cubs alive. This will ensure that female bears like this can become fat enough to reproduce and successfully add new bears into this bear population. That's a female there in one of her dens. And cubs like this can have the opportunity to live in the wild. With your support, we could stop bear starvation. You can have a direct impact by preventing the only bear in South America from going extinct in the wild. Thank you so much for joining me.